Yeah, so just a few hours ago in the kitchen with the family, having a meal, but the thought that came through my mind at a moment there was like about Benny Hill. And Benny Hill was this like 70s or 80s so-called comedy show on English TV, British TV, the BBC or whatever it was. So Benny Hill was like this clownish character, this middle-aged guy, and he went around ogling and touching up women. Yeah, he was a sexual predator, but not too serious, and it was all like a comedy kind of thing. It was certainly sexualized content for the boomer generation, back when they were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s maybe. Yeah, maybe it was in the 70s. Back in a time where it was sort of normal for men to be lechers. But thought that came through to me was about like how through the television it's filling people's minds who watch the TV. That information is going inside of their minds in the same way as when you eat food, that food is going inside in your guts. The eyes are receiving the rays of light information from black and white TV to colour TV. But anyway, the split-second thought that I had for a moment or whatever was that Benny Hill was like causing my parents' generation, who in many ways were frigid people because sexuality had been frowned upon and discouraged and, you know, outlawed in many ways. So, like, coming from an Irish culture anyway, the church were certain that, you know, sex was just bad, and sexuality was bad, and sensuality was bad, and there was a lot of fear around all of these things. This is already taking like 10 times longer to explain than the flash of a thought that I had, but the flash of a thought that I had was that in some ways what's going on with our whole culture is that from a very frigid and cold past, things have been hotting up, and TV and all the media that we consume in many ways are heating things up, and that sexuality healing is like the kundalini rising from the base all the way up to the skull, all the way out of the skull type of thing. So similarly, all the psychedelic drugs cause that kundalini rising, which caused insights into the future and stuff. And it was only after having all of that kind of split-second thought, kind of mentioning it to my partner Tara, and I realised, hang on a minute, yeah, what's going on outside in the world at the minute is things are heating up so much. Like, nobody can deny that suddenly the weather this week is kind of hotter than it should be, but hotter than it should be only means hotter than we're used to in most years. And but something about that heat is like it's like a microwave heat instead of a warm fire heat. It's like an LED light rather than a fuzzy, warm filament light. The heat is kind of white hot instead of golden. It's like so many houses now don't actually have a fireplace in them, they have a central heating system kind of stuff. What we used to think of as simply natural has become what we now call artificial, meaning extruded so far away from nature, you know, like plastic. So there's a neuro-linguistic plasticity going on in our minds these days that goes along with the idea of when you heat things, it frees electrons, and those electrons mix in different ways, and that's creating different substances, and that's creating newer thoughts, and there are so many thoughts now compared to how it was in the past. So the heat, the hotter something is the higher the frequency, kind of an idea. What's going on in our world these days is that there's a far higher frequency of thoughts going on. When I was a kid, the older people would speak a lot slower, and they were very comfortable with long silences, and they didn't feel the need to fill every moment with vocalizing something about their personality or about everything that they knew. So the natural was quite feeling, and the feeling was not needing to be so het up and hot-headed about everything. People were a lot cooler, you could say. So the frequency of thoughts, high frequency thoughts, high spin electrons, and a higher and higher frequency of pulses being sent through the 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, 7G, G standing for generation of new iteration of frequency wavelengths, becoming higher and higher frequency, requiring more and more boosters or repeaters or sensors or, what do you call them, telecommunication towers. The telecommunicators are becoming smaller and smaller, and the wavelengths which they transmit are becoming smaller and smaller, but therefore there are more and more of them. Between the amount of transmitters we have on the surface of the Earth and the amount of transmitters apparently are, these little cube satellites, which are only about this size, So cube satellites, the satellites that we think are up there. An awful lot of those satellites are actually really small, networked together, almost like a cloud of satellites. I guess that's the Tesla ones, but it's not just Tesla. He's just the Tesla stuff, or Starlink, if you want to call it that, or for all the idiots out there that call him Elon just because everyone else calls him Elon, as if Musk is too hard to pronounce. It's just another one of those crazy things that even the people who fucking hate everything he stands for call him Elon. But anyway, Starlink. The point being is they're all threaded together. It's a networked concept. But why I mention it is just to say that we are filling the atmosphere with artificial technological machinery that are sending invisible pulses higher and higher and more frequently, such that you can see those herringbone designs in the sky quite often. I'm not going to try and point them out with this camera for the people who've already seen them. You've already seen them. For the people who don't see that stuff as being strange, that's fine too. So something about the sunlight is in some ways hotter than merely that it's 36 degrees down south or it's 32 degrees up here, and it's not really about like the warmth of the temperature, it's about the heat. It's about the type of waves they are. It's as if the wavelengths from the sun in the past were a longer wavelength than the short wavelength, high frequency waves that we're getting from the sun these days. So that may well be that the atmosphere is changing. It seems likely that obviously the atmosphere has to be changing simply because of the frequencies which humans are putting into the air. But it may also be changing. All of this hotting up, everything I've been on about these last few minutes, is everything to do with time frequencies. That time itself is to do with frequency spins. We live in a Goldilocks zone of time. We're not too fast and we're not too slow, and we're tuned in our visual and thought realms to only see and think and perceive, with a certain amount of colors within a certain amount of these frequency spectrum range. So we have things like the autism and the on the spectrum and the neurodiversity and the non-binary and the various types of new categories which the children seem very okay with. kind of thing. So I know for my generation and older, for people in their 40s and 50s and 60s, the idea that somebody might identify as being non-binary is just like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know what the word even means. And then there are all these other kinds of words, which I haven't learned. But, you know, from what I hear from the other 40, 50, 60-year-olds who are upset about these things, there's like 70 different names that you can identify with these days to label yourself as some form of not normal gender identifications. But the thing about all that is really I recognize that there is a male and female in the brain. Their feelings are feminine and the mind is mental. There is an inside world that's feminine as far as I'm concerned, and there's a masculine world as far as I'm concerned that's outer. And for a lot of people, they may never have thought of things as the feminine being the inner and the masculine being the outer. You may not have even thought as water has got feminine qualities, whereas light has got masculine qualities. You might never have even thought that feminine is curvy and the masculine is straight. All these different things. The point being is that there is a male and female component to every body. And more than just male and female, that's just the most basic way that we can say things. There are more than one types of feeling. There are more than one types of expression of how to be manifest out there in the world. Man-I-fest. So it has seemed to me for a long time, since the 90s, I've been aware that time itself is accelerating faster and faster. I used to make a magazine called Catalyst, and when I quit out of making Catalyst, the following morning I woke up with the idea of I'll make a new magazine and it'll be called Accelerating Times, which I never did make and publish that magazine. I ended up moving from Dublin to Glastonbury and instead ended up making Accelerating Rhymes. Instead of publishing truth, instead of publishing a magazine of factual information, I ended up publishing a fairy tale of rhyming information. Instead of publishing something which was a masculine mind for out there, I ended up publishing something that came from an internal rhyming scheme that was very feminine, therefore. And the expression of it in the outside world was a masculine thing to do, but the what's called wisdom in it, and the way it rhymes, and the word plays, and the unspelling, that was all very feminine in many ways. So the acceleration of frequencies, the acceleration of time, the acceleration in the population, the amount of babies being born on the world is increasing every day. The Caucasian people, and apparently the Japanese people and even the Chinese people are a bit worried that their acceleration in childbirth, how many babies are being born to these countries and these peoples and these cultures, is slowing down from the peak of 100 years ago. But overall on the planet, apparently, according to everyone really, the population is continuing to expand at an almost exponential kind of rate. More and more babies are being born all the time, and all babies are born innocent. And the guilt-laden feelings of becoming adults and therefore less innocent because of doing things that we know aren't right, but having to do it for money, for survival. The older people are dying out and more innocent babies are being born all the time. And this is one of the principles I have in mind that proves to me in my own world that things are actually improving on the earth, while most of the older people I know around me are all freaked out that everything's fucked. And yet to me, I don't see everything fucked at all. But it's very unpopular. It's very unpopular to not be going around complaining about everything that's fucked up. It's very unpopular to not be in groups that are blaming other people as the cause of why everything's fucked up. It's very unpopular to be not bothered about politics whatsoever. It's infinite things I could say. It's very unpopular to be. It's very unpopular to hold feelings that are not popular. It's very unpopular to process the dark side. It's very unpopular to be the scapegoat. It's pretty much very unpopular to stand up to the bullying that is democracy or groupthink or school. You know, even when I was a kid, there were not that many people in the class who were standing up to the teachers. There were not that many other people who were getting sent to the headmaster and just telling the headmaster straight up, like, you're wrong, dude. Your whole system's wrong. Your attitude stinks. It wasn't a popular thing. It kind of got me in trouble to say those things, and not everyone was like, hey, let's hang out with a guy who's always in trouble. Yeah, so it's not very popular to be thinking deeper wisdom instead of just surface reaction and reacting with everybody, and it can't seem to fit in. Like in Ireland at the moment, in some ways, it seems that if you're not totally terrified about immigration, or if you're not totally terrified about the fascists, racists who are terrified about immigration, if you're not in either of those camps, then it's not very popular to think, hey, everything's going to work out. It's going to work out. Once upon a time we only had black and white TVs, and then they became rainbow coloured. Once upon a time people used to just talk about black people being niggers and white people being Caucasians or whatever else. Now we recognise there's just loads of these different half-caste colours. Difficult to say that because I know a lot of my friends will be like, hey, you're actually supporting what's going on, as if I'm making some political statement. Or if I say my kids are not so freaked out about the trans movement as most of the older people, and my kids have helped me understand what sense it makes to children about being sensitive. Then loads of people are going like, you're promoting the trans, but I'm not. I'm just being able to see that not everything new is completely wrong, and not everything in the past was completely good. So it's just on that concept, and maybe I'll leave it there. Doggy's been having a good run around. At that point of 20 odd years, 25, nearly 30 years of whatever, I've recognised that there are more and more babies being born all the time, and all the babies are born innocent. All the babies are born into a higher frequency. Each generation, just like with the technology of the phones, each generation of phone has got more sensitivity, more capacity of memory, more processing power, more design features, more megapixels, more capabilities. But it's the same with us generations of humans. More generations of humans being born have a greater fidelity. If children are like sensors that are sensing what's going on in the atmosphere, children are more and more sensitive these days, and they're more overwhelmed by how much information they're receiving. And again, this is reaching some acceleration point, some exponential point, some end of time crises, for sure. But I'm not standing on the side of anyone who's just full of fear. I'm not comfortable with agreeing with people just because they're violent, because they're so scared. It's just not how I am built. So if that helps anyone out there who is feeling totally freaked out about everything that's going on in the world, just to realise that the more children are being born, no matter what their culture was, no matter what country they came from, no matter what skin colour they may be, the very fact that there are brand new generations being born all the time, and they're carrying a different genetic memory, as well as a different cultural memory, as well as a different cultural outlook. So it's really difficult having, Congolese and other types of cultural people coming to Ireland when Ireland is so particularly soft and juicy after the last, since the Celtic Tiger. Ireland has been so awash with money that people have become so soft. The Irish people have taken so much cocaine, they've drank so much alcohol, they've taken so much ecstasy, they have become so dependent on virtual realities. And it's not surprising that they're now a little bit fucking scared of everything. And there are things to be scared of, like Congolese men with knives slitting people's throats and gouging people's eyes out. That's kind of terrifying, and that has been going on in other countries, and for that to finally be arriving in Ireland even a little bit is terrifying. But then Irish people used to gouge people's eyes out and do it to each other over religion. Irish people only 50 years ago, only 30 years ago, only 27 years ago, before the Good Friday Agreement between the Catholics and Protestants. Like, why was it called the Good Friday Agreement? Why was it at Easter? Because it was programming. It was saying, bury the fucking hatchet, guys. We set you at war against each other, and now we're telling you to make peace. It's tricky, but you got to swallow it, dear Irish friends. Sorry. This is true. So it is a weird thing that the immigration is happening, and it is a really weird thing that it is the Caucasian white-skinned, not that our skins are actually white. It's weird that we're even using these words, the terminology, when terminology actually means the end of things, to terminate. Yeah. It is really weird that Caucasian people have been killing each other for the last 1,000 years. Certainly for the last 500 years, over whether Protestant or Catholic is the correct version of a written story. It's really weird that it's Caucasian people that are organising for all these other countries to be sending their refugees and their criminals, people who are trying to escape from the original country to not face justice, are slipping through the system quite easily because of the numbers. So that there are indeed people who are dangerous in the country they came from and are a danger everywhere they go. And how to organise our Caucasian cultures, our Irish culture, our British culture, to be able to take care of our people, while also extending, right, okay, so there's people who aren't our people now living in our town, in our village. It's tricky as can be. Tourism is also a similar sort of a danger. It's just a different sort of tourism. But anyway, I'm totally pontificating. In some ways I was just filling in time while letting the dog do his run around and keep fit. In some ways I just wanted to come over to this little tree space because it's cool here. This is a cool little area on what is otherwise a very hot day. It's hot in the house. It's hot to walk from the house through the field to get to here. is a thing that's worth showing though. So all these little birds. Turn the camera around and be able to zoom. These birds are all flying around and they are eating shit. They're eating cow shit. More likely they're eating the little creatures in the cow shit. There's like hundreds of them just in this little field. They also migrate. They come from some foreign countries and come over here just to eat our shit, and then they go backwards afterwards. It's all a bit strange to talk about. I'm gonna go now anyway. Hey Peter, thanks for saying things. Try reading them. And Jonathan Clark, hello. Don't know who you are, but maybe I do. Yeah, bye folks.